All right, good afternoon. Neil here with end of day wrap up. Simpler trading. This is for the Voodoo Mastery, and it was what an interesting day today, honestly, especially after what we saw late last week in terms of the late week volatility. At the end of the day, though, up 100 in the ES or 1.6%, and it's better than a 50% retracement of the Thursday, Friday late week selling that we saw last week. So throws me into, honestly, a little bit of a flux, I guess, if you will, because I did late week videos end of last week, and I told you I was looking for a modest uptick back into the about a 382 retrace, which coincidentally happened to overlap with the weekly pivot. So I tried to fade that this morning. Did not work, but I did give it a shot. So the idea there was with the impulse down, about a 382 recovery, and then another leg down that would put this to new lows beyond last Friday's low. What we do, though, have is quite interesting because this is really about an equal and opposite recovery today, Monday, of last Friday's selling. As you can see here, it's almost perfect symmetry, and that in and of itself can be quite bullish. So what I will be doing for tonight and tomorrow is to see. It's got one last ditch effort here, really, 618, and then beyond that, and I feel like it's really too much of a bounce in order to continue with another bearish leg. So tomorrow, looking to see if there's any follow through, if ES happens to kind of tag and maybe roll off of that 618, that'd be one thing. Here, watch this though. What we saw early this morning was something to really take note of. It's something we were looking at in the room. This was pretty interesting. The way this thing just really started out quite well out of the hole here this morning. It was pretty impressive. So usually what I advise is, folks look at about a 3-minute chart. This happens to be one, but you can count 3 bars, right? So the open essentially really is the low, and it comes in an impulsive fashion out of the hole this morning, just immediately for like 12 some odd ES points. And then the next, so that would be the first clue, is open is the low, and it has an impulsive drive. We call it a drive out of the open like that. That's step one. So if and when that is, noticeably impulsive, and then also has to be greater than just the average, and that's about 2 times the average range for that period of time. That'd be step one. And then 2 is, do we then see immediately and some additional follow through, which you can see did happen here. The important takeaway here is that this is not all that terribly common. 15, maybe 20, probably honestly closer to like 15% kind of historical average. The takeaway here, though, is when we do see that, that's one of the 2 most common open types that would lead to a day type being a trend day. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. If we look beyond and look out into the end of the day, what we see is the open started at one end, in this case the low. The close went out at the other end, in this case the high. I mean, it just continued up all the way into the close, as you can see. It did it on impressive range, check. I mean, really, really good range today, in fact. And with minor retracements or counter retracements back against the predominant trend throughout the course. And I would have to say check, there as well. The last thing that if you really want to be picky is you would also want to see that this point of control goes out in near vicinity in the upper kind of, I'd say upper like quad. So in this case, check that the point of control also went out with the close. So we have a really, we have a learning kind of opportunity here in that a lot of times, if you'll get halfway or 3/4 of the way through the day and you'll say, my goodness, this looks like a trend day. I wish there was a way to kind of figure this out a lot sooner than now when it's already, 2 o'clock, an hour before the bell. Well, there is, and that is this open type. And if it was just a normal kind of an open, there would be trade on both sides of the opening print. It would take a couple minutes to figure out, okay, we're going to breach maybe the top or the bottom of that little open range where the market on opens make their way in. Not this case though. This morning, this is open and it just takes off. It does it impulsively. It does it with probably at least 2 times the average range for that period of time. It's probably 5.5 average for that open 3 minutes. This was about 12. Immediate follow through, check. You're already saying to yourself 3, 4, 5 maybe minutes in this morning, because we did in the room. We were like, oh boy, this is one of those. And well, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is this is one of the most common opens that would ultimately lead to trend day. So then you have a set of criteria, again, that you would assign to whether or not you'd be willing to classify this as trend. I would say if it opens on one end, closes on the other, in other words, for up, the low is in the first 30 minutes, the high is in the final 30 minutes, the close goes out with the open, it does it on impressive greater than average range, which it did. It does so with very minor counter retracements against the predominant nature of this, which was bullish today. And then, like I say, if you really want to be picky, and we do look for this, and that is the point of control, i.e. where the most volume was traded. And this is a volume point of control. You can do the same with like a standard market profile looking at time, but I'm doing it in volume in this case. So then lastly, does it bring the acceptance or point of control out near vicinity with the close? In other words, in this upper area, which it did. So opportunity today for learning something that we don't see all that very, very often. In fact, I've done some studies on how often, and this open type is, honestly, I think it's about 16%, but you could say anywhere 15 to 20. And when you do, you've learned something now from this, and that is the key takeaway, and that is don't find yourself 1:32, 2:30 in the afternoon saying, oh my goodness, look, here we have a trend day. I wish there was a way to have had a clue or have tried to found a way to have figured this out a lot earlier, i.e. well, there it is back there near the open. So opportunity for something to really kind of highlight and point out here today. Hope it helps and you have good trading. This, I'll tell you, this we were talking about 3-4 minutes in the open this morning. That is, we have that open type, and remember, this is that open that can very well lead to, and there you have it, trend day by end of day. Come see us, Simple Trading. We're in the Voodoo Mastery. Take care. Good trading.